Fondation Jean-Jaurès.
Penser pour agir.
Russia's war in Ukraine has shattered the international order, increasing stability all over Europe. We'll discuss today some of its repercussions in the Western Balkans with Engjellushe Morina. Engjellushe, you are a senior fellow at the European Council on Foreign Affairs. I am Florent Marciacq, co-director of the Observatory des Balkans at the Fondation Jean-Jaurès. Engjellushe, hi, good morning.
Hi, good to see you, Florent.
Engjellushe,
thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. You have recently published an article on the ECFR on the energy crisis that looms over the Western Balkans. The winter is now coming. The topic of energy security ranks very high on the agenda of all the member states of the European Union. But last week in Prague at the summit, we've seen that European leaders could hardly reach an agreement for the EU, let alone the Western Balkans. So I would like to ask you how vulnerable the region is economically in the face of this energy crisis and what could be done.
You're very correct, Flora, to say that this energy security crisis deriving from Ukraine will have, or deriving from the war in Ukraine will have repercussions in the Balkans. But I like to add that the region has had so many problems that the war is really not the cause, especially in the energy sector. So many of the countries still continue to use coal as the only source of energy. And some of these countries had already plans to start phasing out, which they had to have another reassessment. One of these countries, or two of these countries, is Macedonia and Kosovo, and they decided to continue with their coal power plants and for a few more years. So this is part of the whole green agenda that, irrespective of the war in Ukraine, was there, and it was supposed to be looked in with some more seriousness. But nonetheless, apart from Kosovo and Macedonia, Albania is also another country that, together with the previously two mentioned, have already announced energy, they call it energy emergency situation. So all these three countries are trying to save as much as possible. Macedonia started since August, with Kosovo starting in September, so that they are somehow prepared for the winter months. Again, the region is used to blackouts. I mean, Kosovo maybe more than the others, and Macedonia to an extent, Bosnia as well. So the energy crisis is not going to be really, I mean, it is drastic in itself, but it's not something completely new. But the fact that these, the measures have not been taken to alleviate some of the repercussions that this could bring in economic terms, I think it's quite worrying in my opinion. And so this, in combination with inflation and with other economic issues going on in the region, especially in some of the countries that are poorer than the others, could actually lead to social, unrest, which is something that no one is going to want to see at this day and age in the Balkans.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right to mention indeed. So somehow the countries in the region might be less dependent on gas than some of the countries in the EU. But because, of course, the price of energy or the price of electricity is linked to the price of gas, as you say, the economic impact might be real, regardless of their energy mix. So do you expect that this unrest, economic difficulties translate in more tensions within the societies in the Western Balkans?
So I hope it's not going to come to that, because I already see that this it's being talked about. Among the countries, I mean, maybe not so much among the countries. There are countries like the three open Balkan countries that are talking more about energy cooperations, and they have been doing this even in the summertime. So even before the autumn season has started. So this is Albania, Macedonia, and Serbia already are talking. I don't know how far the plans are, but the rest of the countries are not, because energy sector is one of those sectors where you're really interdependent. countries in the Balkans are interdependent, and then the region of the Balkans is interdependent with Europe and the other way around. And we can elaborate this, maybe it's not a topic of exactly this discussion, but interdependence is key. So I haven't seen so far like some kind of real plans for cooperation among the Balkan countries, apart from some. Mm-hmm. And so this really raises questions of, I hope it doesn't come to social unrest. I really do. But then the question still remains, what are some of the measures being taken to alleviate the problems that could derive from this? And I don't see very many, to be honest, in the region. And I don't see any proper or concrete reaching out from EU. And you mentioned yourself, they had difficulties agreeing among themselves in Prague. And so I think the region in this picture was, it was a picture that was quite faded. I didn't see a concrete plan being offered or a concrete plan being discussed how to together get out of these crises unscathed. So it's to be seen. Unfortunately, it doesn't look very good.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a second now about foreign policy and some of the bilateral disputes. Clearly, the threat perceptions changed within the EU since February 24th. The member states have closed ranks, and adopted a series of common approaches, sanctions against Russia. In the region, these sanctions have not been taken by Serbia, and that comes to another issue, the issue of Kosovo's contested statehood, which remains 5 member states of the EU, despite the geopolitical context, still have not recognized Kosovo, just as Serbia and Russia have not, and other countries too. That is the kind of vulnerability which remains in foreign policy. I would like to ask you, what is your take on this issue of Kosovo's contested statehoods, the position of Serbia, Russia on the backgrounds in the new geopolitical context? Do you see some movements possible, so going somewhere?
So I think at the outset, I like to say that the new geopolitical reality, it's still being kind of carved out. We don't know how the world is going to look in, let's say, 5 years' time. We know that it's changing rapidly. But this has brought some opportunities for Kosovo and not so many opportunities for Serbia. Mm-hmm. For Kosovo, like you said, there is, the countries have been more united, European countries have been more united about their new architecture or security architecture. They have been united into how to deal with the different neighborhoods, the Balkans and the eastern neighborhood, and so on and so forth. So we have seen very quickly, few changes in policymaking in Brussels. On the other hand, Serbia is not in a very favorable geopolitical situation because of its relation or traditional ties to Russia. They still hesitate to go fully on board with uniting with EU on sanctions against Russia. And just recently, because I had the impression that the voices calling for Serbia to align with EU on sanctions have started fading out, I just realized recently that the parliament has started an initiative. And I think it was a report in the making. I'm not so sure I've seen anything official yet. But there is that. On the other hand, there are also these other voices calling for to go easy on Serbia. But nonetheless, the geopolitical reality, it's definitely offering a situation where some of these really burning issues and protracted dispute between Kosovo and Serbia could be resolved. If, for example, the 5 countries come on board and recognize Kosovo, this would be a huge win for EU as a geopolitical actor, because that they could then, as one unit, say that we favor a real EU perspective for Kosovo, which could also help in resolving some of the pending issues for the citizens of the north of Kosovo. Mm-hmm. There is this issue of the energy. We go back to energy, and then all sorts of issues of ID cards, car plates, and so on and so forth. But in a nutshell, it's favorable. Geopolitical conditions right now are favorable to solving the dispute between Kosovo and Serbia.
The EU has facilitated a dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade for 10 years now. And recently, so a series of agreements have been made, but implementation is difficult and it's not getting a lot of strategic traction. Recently, the member states, France and Germany, took that in their hand and tried to push through intergovernmental dialogue themselves. Do you think this is the right path? So to try to put more political weight of some member states to get things moving, even if it implies going a little bit sidestep of the dialogue?
I think the diplomatic efforts, as they call them, of Germany and France are right ones. And I think EUSR Lajčák, the facilitator, needs a lot of help from member states, especially from the two powerful countries in the EU. And to be very fair to the whole situation, both France and Germany have quite a good reputation in the Balkans. Germany is looked upon as an authority both from Kosovo and from Serbia. And France also is gaining a lot of grounds. In Serbia, always had grounds. There was always the special friendship. But also in Kosovo, France has become quite a factor in recent years. So it's really good that these two countries specifically have joint efforts to support EU facilitation efforts. Also, because now we have a strong government in Serbia, hopefully a new government, not so new, but still, by the end of October. In Kosovo, hopefully the government is still quite strong. And also in France and Germany, President Macron has a new mandate, and Chancellor Scholz has a really good coalition going on, especially when it comes to the Balkans. So all these factors are there, and there is a lot of support coming from the US. And I think the expectations from the US are also, everyone has a strong government now, do something about this. So I see it as positive. But what I hope is going to happen, because until now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen like an official document what has been on offer. This is more or less talks. At one point, the governments have not, accepted that there is, in the last 2 days, they are acknowledging that there is a proposal. So that I hope this proposal, it's acceptable, because this is the most important part. It has to be acceptable by Kosovo and Serbia. Otherwise, it's just going to come to nothing. Previous experience tells us that no matter how great one proposal could be, if one side doesn't go ahead with it, and I fear we could see episodes like this, either President Vučić or Prime Minister Kurti not agreeing to whatever it's on offer. And they have been sitting on opposing ends until now. So
what is new, and I think this is what you mentioned by welcoming the greater engagement of the member states in the face of such issues, is that it brings back like the ends of the disputes on the table, whereas in the dialogue we were more dealing with concrete technical issues, and the theology had a little bit disappeared. So that's a welcome return, and that brings me to the last question. About this engagement of the member states, which we see also in the framework of the European political community. So the first meeting just took place. What do you think about it? How do you think the enlargement policy fits or connects with these new political constructs?
So I'm glad we are discussing this topic, because again, I think I like to hear more analysis coming from France, what this is about, because it's an initiative that has been kind of born in France. And not just now, I think it's an old one, but anyhow, this is now reshaped by Macron. So, but you rightly pointed out, so I am a bit skeptical because I'm thinking, there are all these processes when it comes to security architecture. There are ongoing processes within EU. There is the Helsinki commitment, so on and so forth. When it comes to bringing the region closer to the EU, there is the enlargement process that you rightly mentioned. So I'm wondering, why do we need an extra process to deal with, I don't know, the issues that have been dealt with until now? What we need is to strengthen the existing processes and to send strong political messages, but also to find ways on how to extend EU's political influence into these two regions, Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership, because obviously these two regions are causing problems and they will be volatile for some time, for a few years at least. So then, this is where I become skeptical. Why another layer of I don't want to call it bureaucracy. Why another layer of politicking when there are all these processes that could be strengthened? But then I want to, give the whole thing the benefit of the doubt. If this is one platform or one fora where the political influence of EU will be extended to the rest, not only the two regions, but also to Turkey, because Turkey is still quite important, and we're forgetting to talk about Turkey. To also extend the political influence to Turkey, and then somehow, UK is not in doubt; they want to stay closer to EU, not maybe part of EU anymore, but still. So if this political community, has that main objective in mind to extend the political influence, then I think it could work. And for the region, this is what is needed, a strong message that the political influence of the EU will be extended no matter what, so that, the void is not filled by all sorts of different other actors.
Thank you. Thank you, Engjellushe, for sharing these thoughts with us. Thank you a lot. Goodbye.
Thanks, Florent.
Fondation Jean-Jaurès.
Penser pour agir.